So we've had the first reflection that we have submitted for this year's module, which was on our animal handling skills, and we had a day where we were practicing the skills we needed for our OSPE exams, which will be in November, in a couple of months' time. And within this reflection I talked a bit about tone of voice and how that can encourage a dog to listen to you more, because I have far less experience handling dogs, particularly new dogs, than I do with horses. I've worked with horses for a lot of my life and I've always been around them, so that it comes quite naturally to me, but with dogs I'm a little less confident. So I thought about the dog that I had on the practice day. It was a little terrier who was very disinterested in me and didn't really want to listen to anything I was saying, and part of me thought that was maybe because the dog was just being a bit distracted perhaps, animals being distracted by the surroundings is quite common, and we have been advised that for our OSPEs we are to ensure there's no distractions and keep the door shut, things like that. So that's something to think about. But also I did some reading and I've looked at tones of voice. So using an imperative tone of voice is something that's been researched and found to be far more influential on dogs' behaviour than using a sort of a normal sort of high-pitched tone, or a tone they don't really listen to. It needs to be quite sort of assertive, and dogs then will listen and I guess take you more seriously than I can tell you a bit high-pitched and a bit sort of girly around dogs, a bit sort of squealy and not very professional. So I think using this imperative tone of voice would be good not only for general, but actually for, I do work an afternoon at a hydrotherapy centre, so I can practice that then, also with my own dog, and just in general for the course, being a therapist in the future. So I'm going to show you the differences between using sort of a normal bland tone of voice and then using an imperative tone of voice to elicit obedient behaviour in my dog. So this is Millie, my Parsons Jack Russell, and if I just do a normal voice to her, sit, 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 good girl. Okay, she finally did it then. Up you get, sit, good girl. So you can kind of see quite a big difference there between using an imperative tone of voice. She actually listens to you, she pays attention, and it's much quicker response I got. So that was just an example of how I'm going to try and use that more imperative tone when I'm working with dogs. And I do actually work one afternoon a week at a canine hydrotherapy centre, so I'm going to try and start practising that there as well, because I do handle a lot of dogs there and I do feel like I'm not that imperative with my tone of voice. So I'm going to, since that reflection, I'm going to use that to improve my canine handling skills. Trots. She likes trotting. Okay, stop now. So we had a piece of critical writing to do for this module, and that was handed in end of October. I've just got my peer feedback from somebody in my class. Today is the 16th of November. I've got that a couple of days ago. So it's just basically what I might have thought when I wrote the piece in the first place. I wasn't really thinking properly. I had a lot on my plate, and I just sort of wrote. It was more less critically analysing, and it was more just analysing. I didn't really criticise any of the papers or work that I'd talked about, it was very much descriptive and comparing, saying so-and-so said this, but so-and-so said this, rather than actually criticising the papers and their methodologies and writing from more of a scientific point of view. And I did sort of know that when I submitted it, but I thought, you know, I'll do it, see what comes out of it. And actually whatever student marked my work said what I really had in my mind. It wasn't very critical. It was, you know, quite well written in the sense that it did do sort of pros and cons, and I looked at different ideas, but I just didn't critique them enough, and I knew that, so that's good. So I'm going to rewrite that before the end of the year. I'm just waiting for feedback from our module leader to see what she thought. But yeah, I think I'm going to rewrite that critical piece of writing, because I know I can write better than that. And I, you know, it's silly if I just leave it, and I know I can write more critically than that. And it's good practice just to go back, and for doing sort of work later on in the year. I think it'd be good for me to do it again, and then I'll get into a bit more of a habit of writing like that. So these reflections are really good, although this isn't a reflection. This module's good because it does make you actually reflect on your work and think about where you could have gone wrong. If this was just a piece of writing I'd handed in and got a rubbish grade for, that I can't do anything more with that. But the fact I can actually go back and change my work and do some more with it so that it actually looks better and actually prepares me better for other modules is really good. So I'm going to do that next week. So at the weekend just gone, we had our OSCE exams. I'm happy to say that I passed both, although I wasn't expecting to pass both of them. I thought I'd actually failed my K9 OSCE because I didn't feel like I'd checked the equipment properly and like pulled it and, you know, to see if it was broken or anything. I didn't feel like I did that really obviously, but I know I definitely checked it, but I wasn't sure how obvious it needed to be, and for that reason I thought I would have probably failed. Finally, the rest of it went okay with the K9 OSCE. I was far more nervous about the K9 OSCE, I think, because I'm not quite as confident handling dogs as I am horses. I'm not as used to handling them. I've handled horses all my life. And I think I tend to focus, I've got quite a negative sort of mindset sometimes, and I tend to focus on sort of the negatives of my performance rather than thinking, well, that was good and focusing on the positives. I just single out the negatives. And that can lead to sort of post-event rumination and, you know, subsequent social anxiety. So I need to try and not be so negative, and it's something I'm going to really work on, because when we have our OSCEs next year, I'm going to really need to try and not be so negative and think of the good things I've done. Otherwise it's not going to help me when I go to treat horses or dogs in the future. If I think of the negatives of that session, that's going to negatively impact me as a therapist. Again, I was quite nervous. I think nerves and anxiety can have quite an impact on your performance. You know, anxiety is a dimension of my personality, definitely, and it can definitely negatively affect the outcome. So again, focusing on my anxiety and trying to be less critical of the negative elements of my performance will really help me as a therapist in the future. So I'm going to go away and do some more work on that. I'm currently an equine sports massage therapist myself anyway, so I'm going to try and use this sort of more of a positive mindset when I'm working with those horses, you know, to help me before I go on to be a vet physio, because I'm going to be dealing with much more complicated cases than I am now, and I need to be able to focus on the positives, try not to get so nervous and anxious with new situations in order to progress as a therapist. So today I just wanted to talk a bit about my anatomy revision. I just want to show you my workspace. I've got my anatomy posters, really good detail I can quickly look at whilst I'm revising without having to get all my textbooks open. Just really helped me visualise the muscle groups on my wall there, the bone, skeleton and things. I've bought my Boudras book, which is great. I've used that a lot actually. And then I've printed off all the middle pages of the Boudras books, and I've annotated all the muscles that I need to learn. So that's all in here. Just highlighting which ones I need, all of those. And then in order to actually practice and start revising, the best way for me to learn really is to just keep rewriting. Repetition I think is quite important for my revision, and my learning style is literally just to repeat and repeat and repeat. I do like that kind of way of learning. I've written all the muscles out in sort of specific groups. I've started with all the limbs. I find them the easiest to understand and learn, and I've done all my sort of central trunk muscles. So here is the biceps brachii muscle, and part of my revision for this, for example, so you can see I've literally repeated it, writing it out by hand, until I can cover it up and remember it on my own. I've done the same thing here with the deltoideus muscle, repeating, just repeating it all out again. And that's the best way that I learn, is by repetition. So I intend to do all the same things for the rest of these muscles. I've just sort of focused on my equine muscles so far, and then I'm going to have a look at my canine ones after. But yeah, these are all the muscles I've written out, and I've highlighted parts that are the most important to help me visualise better the most important elements, and hopefully that is going to be able to enable me to actually revise quite effectively. I've got a couple of months left now until my exam. I've got 2 months, so that should be plenty of time for me to continue with this revision and hopefully pass my exams in May. The other way I've found that has been really helpful for my revision is through the dissections we've been having at university, in the labs. We have had now the canine dissection, and my canine anatomy wasn't as good as my equine at all, because I'm already a sports massage therapist. I've got a lot of my sort of superficial equine anatomy quite under wraps, and I sort of know quite a lot of the basics of that anyway, but with dogs I'm far less knowledgeable. So actually being able to see the interactions of the muscles and the way they lay, and it's not just, you understand it's not just a superficial and middle and a deep layer. They don't work like that. But you can't really work that out from a textbook. I think dissections are a really good way of fully understanding the interactions and how the muscles actually lie within the animal. So they've been really, really handy revision tool actually. We've taken a lot of pictures in the sessions with lots of labels on, and they will be really useful for my revision sessions. So we've had quite a few reflections to do within this module this term. We have been reflecting on our anatomy knowledge, internal placement days, reflecting on our OSPE, which have been a really, really good way for me to think about what I've done and how I can learn from those situations and how I can improve. So they've been really, really handy. My only thought though is that although I find these reflections quite helpful, and feedback is kind of helpful from other students, but I mean personally I've never ever written reflectively before, ever, as this is quite new for me, and I don't know whether my reflective writing is brilliant. Some of the feedback I get from students is that it's fine, and there's some minor things I have to add, but when I'm sort of analysing other students' reflections, I don't know whether I'm actually giving them feedback that's going to actually benefit them, or whether that's just my thought, because I think everyone reflects differently, and I don't know whether my thoughts on their reflection are valid because they might not reflect that way. So I just don't know whether the student feedback is actually that beneficial, because like I said, everyone reflects differently. We have had one reflection that's been marked by our module leader, and I got quite a rubbish grade for it. I got 56, I think, which I wasn't very happy with. I wouldn't be happy with that in any other module or any other piece of work. And there wasn't really any feedback as to why I got such a low grade. There wasn't anything didn't say anything I could have improved on. There was a couple of minor referencing issues or citation issues or something, but I don't think that would be enough to drop me, like the 10% or the 10 points that I'd like to be sort of in the 60s. So I don't really know how to improve my referencing, because the feedback from my module leader wasn't very direct, and stuff from the students I've been getting is that my reflections are quite good. So again, as students, I feel like a lot of us, because we've done scientific undergraduate degrees, we won't have been needed to reflect on our on our work for those kinds of degrees. So I think a lot of us are in the same boat in the sense that we haven't reflected before, and I don't know whether us commenting on each other's reflections actually helps any of us. It'd be good if we could maybe have access to everyone's reflection, so we can see how people reflect. Maybe that would give us a bit more of an idea. I think looking at one reflection is quite limited, so maybe if we didn't have to mark each other's but actually just could have access to everyone's reflections, that would probably be a good way for us to develop and get better ideas on reflecting more professionally. Oh yeah, so it's March the 5th. Feeling a little bit overwhelmed because I feel like we've had a lot of deadlines being set sort of in the last couple of weeks, couple of months. If you can see my little exam timetable I've got up here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 deadlines, including 2 exams between now and June. I don't feel like we were really set a lot sort of in the first semester, so I feel maybe it could have been spread out a little bit better over the terms. We've been set a lot of work in this second semester, and I think a lot of the students are feeling quite similar to me in the fact that there's suddenly a lot of work to do, a lot of revision we've got to try and do for this anatomy exam next 2 months' time, and trying to plan it all out and stick to my revision timetable has proven quite difficult. Trying to do university work, earn money to pay rent, and then have a little bit of a social life as well is quite difficult when you've got that many deadlines to meet. So I'm just going to have to keep persevering, and I'm sure I'll be fine, and I'll just stick to as much as I can to my revision timetable, and hopefully we'll be okay.